honest, the biggest reason that I'm making this video, tying it into a blog, is just an excuse to show off this completely original Seiko 6217-8001, also known as the 62 Mas, all original from 1966. So if you guys follow our channel, you probably saw I did a video on the reissue of the SLA 017. Would have been cool to have both of them next to each other, but unfortunately had to send that SLA 017 back to its owner. But in my hands right now is an all original version from 66. So just want to showcase this really quickly and get into today's topic. This is a super cool piece, guys. Completely original. Everything hasn't been reloomed. And the case finishing and everything is still super sharp. I hope this camera can pick up on some of those beautiful original brushed edges of that and the polished sides here with that original big crown. So as I'm sort of talking to you guys here, I'm just going to show you a little bit of this. Some watch porn. So one of the really cool things about this piece too is the early 6217s had the dolphin engraving, but the early ones weren't engraved very deeply. So over the years, most of these casebacks have completely worn off to like a completely polished or brushed surface just because of being in contact with the skin. But this one, in its incredible condition, you can actually see a little bit of that dolphin left, as well as some of the text that surround the caseback. Only the newer ones from 67 and 68 actually had deeper engravings, which are still very apparent. You can see those on the in Google Images if you just search 62 Mas dolphin caseback. So this one is from the Sua Seikosha plant. The Daini ones are a little bit rarer, and they have a different loom. This one ages a little differently, surprisingly. It has more of sort of a greenish, a pale green, lime green kind of tint to it. As opposed to the dark brown that comes out of the Daini plants. So yeah, completely original. I threw this guy on a little cool vintage strap. I think it makes it look really awesome as well. And here it is, guys. This is the first professional diver from Seiko. The very first one. And these values have been skyrocketing lately, so pretty cool. Anyways, the whole point of today's video, guys, I wanted to kind of go back to a blog that Jared created, or he wrote back in June, and the title, we'll go ahead and link it in the description, is 5 Things You Must Consider When Buying a Vintage Watch. So I'm just going to kind of run through some of these rules that Jared created because I think they're great guidelines when you're searching on eBay or looking at some postings on some kind of forums or Facebook groups even. Kind of go-to things that could be a dead giveaway if you want an all original, if you should, continue to pursue it with the owner and ask him more questions, or it's going to be an automatic disqualification from your criteria list. So I also here just for show have a vintage pre-snorkel Bulova that I picked up on eBay. As far as I know, it's completely original, and did a little bit of research and showed some of some people from some knowledgeable vintage people, and they all believe that this is completely original as well. So I got this little pre-snorkel here, Bulova 666 diver, with the really cool white dial that's patinaed a little bit. Anyways, let's get into the blog post. So rule number 1, run from redials. So the term redial, I guess in Jared's blog's case, and universally for the most part, can mean a couple different things. It can, I guess you could call it either a completely swapped dial that might be fake or Franken or something like that, or from an improper time period, or what we commonly refer to as redials are dials that have been touched up by paint, with paint by, so-called watchmakers or artists. So a lot of times if you look at watches that are really old, since they do start to patina, and to the general public, of course, patina is not, the most attractive thing. What a lot of people will do is take some paint and take the dial and just touch it up to make it a little bit bolder. For example, like, you know, the Rolex, or even the R or the O on Rolex on a dial, or for here in this example, the S on Seiko or the B on Bulova, right? They might take a really fine paintbrush and actually paint over it. So there are a couple different things that you can look for, and I'll let you guys look at the blog. Jared goes very in depth into what to really look for, but the biggest thing is to be able to compare those redials or something that you think that might be redialed to a picture of an all original. A lot of the times the lettering might be a little bit off. It might be a little bit too thick. The actual characters might have weird things on them, like the E in Rolex might not look the same. And some of the subtext might even look a little bit different. And like I said, the thickness, the boldness of the letters is usually a dead giveaway. So that's number one. Always look for potential redials, because I think that's probably one of the most common things. Number two, let the luminous guide you. So let the luminous guide you. This refers to the actual lume on pieces. So as a lot of you guys probably know, a lot of watches in pretty 90s-ish use tritium. So if anything from the 60s or the 70s glows and has crazy superluminova glow, like some of the Seikos that you might find today, or really any diver for that matter, that means it has been re-lumed. And obviously that means it's been tampered with and it's not original. So be careful for those. Now, I should note that in some cases, if you do flash a flashlight on a watch, like for example this Seiko, it'll actually shine pretty bright, but it fades away in a matter of seconds. It probably goes from super bright down to almost no glow at all in about 15-20 seconds. So old tritium, old radium will still flash when you, or will still glow when you flash it with a flashlight or your iPhone or something. But if it fades away really quickly to almost nothing within a minute, then you're usually safe. So keep that in mind. It's mostly the lume that sticks around for a long time means that it's probably been redialed. Point number three, watch the hands. So this one's kind of self-explanatory, and I think this Seiko is a perfect example of that. So if you take a look at this Seiko, you'll see that the lume on the hands and the markers match perfectly, right? They have this sort of like dirty green, like I mentioned, sort of a lime green patina to them. So if you find a watch that has beautiful custard yellow patina on the markers, and then you see the hands and they're completely white, that means that most likely those hands have been replaced. And then of course, if the hands have lume on them and they shine and the markers don't, then you know that obviously those have been replaced and it's a service, and those are service hands. But the discoloration is usually a big giveaway. Now, there are some differences though. I mean, if you look at this Bulova, you'll see that the markers have sort of a brownish tint to them, and the hour hand and the minute hand also have a brownish tint to them, but it's almost orange. It's almost like a little bit more rusted. So there's obviously a difference in the color between the two, but I can still assume that these are probably original, because some hands don't always age the same exact way that the markers do. So, and my Speedmaster 3590 from my old one from the early 90s is a perfect example of that. The markers are very kind of yellow, or like a brownish custard, and the hands are sort of like a very light custardy color. So be on the lookout for that. Number four, crowns and bezel tell the story. So these are pretty difficult sometimes unless you really know the models. A lot of watches sometimes will be fitted with aftermarket crowns or bezels. The bezels sometimes can be a little bit easier because you can look at different markings or the different finishes that they have. The crowns can be a little bit more difficult. You just need to make sure that when you're looking at the reference, you're looking at the correct reference in some type of historical book or some kind of forum post, and you know that the crown is appropriate for the time period for a certain watch, because those can easily be replaced by watchmakers. And the last point, does it have a history? So something like the 62 Moss, this comes from someone who I know purchased the watch from the original owning family. It was a grandson that had a watch that was handed down from his grandpa that actually purchased this watch when he was in the military. So it has some provenance that can be traced back. So it's always important when you are kind of looking at vintage watches to ask the owner as much as you can about the history. And hopefully they'll have a little bit of history on the watch. If not, it's a little bit more of a you're taking a little bit more of a chance because you don't know if it's been serviced in the past or not. But always ask if there's any type of history for the watch, service history at that too. So those are the 5 guidelines that Jared came up with. I think they're pretty cut and dry. I think they're kind of great things to look out for. And also, of course, a great excuse to show off these 2 pieces that I have in my possession right now, an all original 62 Moss and a Bulova 666 pre-snorkel devil diver. And I just had to know what's out here. I don't even know why. But anyways, got my sub on today, guys. As always, join us on the Facebook group. You can interact with us there. Let me know if you guys have any other kind of go-to rules that you look for on eBay listings, go-to rules of your own that you go by when you look at eBay listings or some kind of forum listings. And until next time, I will see you guys later.